The absolute most important thing is officer safety. The absolute most important thing is officer safety.
People. This one's brought to us by WPTV News, Florida Palm Beaches and Treasure Coast. This one's about 2 weeks old, so I thought I'd share it with you in case you hadn't heard about this one. This would be the press conference of Sheriff Gregory Tony announcing the arrest of JAMIHA Thomas down there in Broward County, Florida. Please go over to WPTV News. Tell them for officer safety, aka no directive, sent you.
Thank you all for coming out to this press conference. Very short notice, just something I want to make sure we had a chance to at least echo into the community other than just a press release. I think most of you at this point understand why we are here, and I'm just going to update the community in the general scheme of over the last 5 years, I've continued to echo this message across this entire county that this office will be transparent and we're going to be accountable. Meaning, when we know, this community is going to know. And the repercussions behind us knowing is someone is going to be held accountable to the degree as to whether they're disciplined from a suspension all the way up through termination. Just a few weeks ago, I was standing amongst you all talking about an internal investigation that we launched related to this PPP scandal. Standing here with the U.S. Attorney General, 17 members were indicted. We put the handcuffs on them and turned them over to our federal partners. And once again, we're in a position where we had to arrest one of our own. Not something that we're proud of, but most certainly something that I'm satisfied in the sense that our Public Corruptions Unit, our Office of Inspector General, and in this particular case, our Internet Crimes Against Children are doing precisely what we need them to do in terms of holding criminals accountable. Let's skip past the fact that we're talking about a deputy. A criminal is a criminal. I don't care if you're wearing a star on your chest or if you're a civilian. We're going to treat you all the same, which means we're going to hold you accountable to the laws of this state. Unfortunately, earlier today, we had to arrest one of our deputies who's been here, employed for about 6 years now, 35-year-old Deputy Thomas. He was involved in an incident where he was responding to a domestic violence call, and ideally, an officer goes out to a site location with the intent to protect and serve the community, or perhaps provide resources and mitigate this particular threat that may be taking place in the household. In this particular case, you got a deputy out here who did nothing more than take advantage of his powers, abuse his authorities, and solicit sexual solicitation of a minor.
What? This cannot be. He is a law enforcement officer. He couldn't do such a thing, could he?
Now, you all have the arrest warrant, or will have access to it and have a chance to read through it, but what I can surmise from what I've been able to read and talking to our investigators, this here is one of the most grotesque and deliberate attempts to really abuse a minor in our community. Many of you heard me say this before, and I'll continue to echo and say it again. Our most viable asset in this community are our kids. And if we can't protect them, we don't have a future not only in Broward County, but perhaps impact the whole future of this country. And so to read this affidavit, this arrest warrant, and talk to our investigators and see a lot of deliberate efforts to be nothing more than a sexual predator is an insult to this agency, it's an insult to this profession, and it's an insult to everybody who ever served in this capacity. So despite the hardships of having to arrest one of our own, I'm glad that we were able to do it and prevent a child from being abused sexually or victimized in any other form or capacity. Sticking with our standard practices and protocols, because he is a sworn law enforcement officer, afforded certain rights, he will be set aside on suspension, administrative leave without pay, pending the investigation, both internally and the criminal allegations that he's going to have to face.
Anybody else doesn't get a vacation. He should be held just like anybody else.
I'm going to pause and allow you to ask me some questions on this because there's a lot of ways I can go, and I think this is better driven if you give me precise questions that you may have.
Sure. So did the incident that you just referenced while he was on a call, so that occurred while he was on duty?
Correct.
So are there other incidences, or is I'm confused about the internet part of it, if this happened?
Sure, so I can elaborate on that. From an investigative standpoint, once we got information and a tip that this deputy was involved in potential soliciting a minor and things of that nature, one of the things we wanted to do was to confirm those allegations and have our own internal investigation that would give us an opportunity to get facts. Facts is the most important part of this thing. In order to do that, our investigators elected to work with our Internet Crimes Against Children because they have an expertise in this arena, providing all type of information to the community, safeguard measures, and we're accustomed through ICAC with dealing with sexual predators. This is what they do. This is their expertise. Our public corruption unit are the experts in terms of internal examination, investigations, but why not tap into the best resource we have, which is our own? And so our ICAC group were part of the investigation, and in this case, pretending to be a minor and having these communications back and forth. So that's their involvement.
So they did this after they heard he was doing something in person with a different minor?
With the same minor. So we'll backtrack. We go out to domestic violence call. Deputy arrives there back in September, have communications with the young girl there, 17 years of age. At some point, exchange phone numbers, have their text messages going back and forth. And throughout that texting and communicating, there had been strategic efforts to plan and meet with the minor, sexual communications, pictures being sent while on duty, exposing his penis and things of that nature. And so that really was part of ICAC's involvement, to be able to have that expertise, allow this dialogue to continue so we can have legitimate criminal charges that go beyond just administrative concerns. I'm going to go back to what I said. It's not just about administrative compliance here. We're talking about criminal behavior of the worst kind. As a law enforcement officer, there's two things I can't stand the most. One, anyone who's willing to run inside of a church, a school, and conduct a mass shooting and kill innocent, unarmed people. It's the most cowardice behavior I can imagine. The second, sexual predators. Those going out there trying to victimize our kids because they're capitalizing on the immaturity, the lack of understanding. And if you're going to do that to a child, what else did we miss, or what else are you willing to do? And so when we got this thing going in terms of internal affairs, we went all in.
All right, I'm going to cut that off right there. Go on over to WPTV News and watch the rest of this thing. And hit that like, share, and subscribe button.
Here it is. If you want to go out and get it, you can go out and get it. Have fun with it. But people do like it, I must say.